Hey everybody, welcome to the show. This week we're discussing preliminary planning for your road trip. Coming to you live from the Bob Varley studio in Orlando, Florida, you're watching The Trip. This is The Trip, episode 13 for the week of May 6, 2015. The Trip is brought to you by Dreams Unlimited Travel, experts at helping you plan the perfect vacation, whether it be theme parks on the West Coast, East Coast, or on the seas. Visit them on the web at www.dreamsunlimitedtravel.com. Hey everyone, welcome to The Trip, a little show about something we all love called vacation. I'm Jenny Lynn.
And I'm Teresa, and back in our production area of the studio, we have Mr. Dustin West, our producer.
I'm here.
You're here?
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
And ready to roll.
Yeah.
This week we're going to be talking about preliminary planning for road trips.
Yeah.
Because
I'm going on a road trip.
Tess is going on a road trip.
I am. And you got to make those immediate decisions. Who's going to go on the trip, when you're going to take the trip. And just get the basics out of the way.
Yeah, we're going to walk you all through it today. Why don't you give us a little bit of a background about what you're looking at?
Right. Okay, my basic plan, and it's an issue, but we're not going to, you don't have to do that. It's my issue. Okay. Didn't seem to fit there. Okay, so anyway, my destination for my road trip is to visit my parents and my family in Biggsville, Illinois, population 350, yeehaw. And it's about a 1,200-mile one-way trip from Orlando. We've done this trip numerous times. So for this trip, we want to maybe step outside the more direct route and do a little side trip. We want to take 3 days and 2 nights going up and coming back.
Yeah.
So, because it is such a long trip, we've tried it straight through, and you're basically a zombie when you pull into the driveway.
Yeah.
And then you're dead for a day and not, so what's the point?
So how long is the trip overall?
Overall, it's going to be a 2-night, 3-day road trip, followed by 6 nights in Biggsville, and then a 2-nighter on the way back, too. So,
so you've went through this whole process of pre-planning, like we've talked about, in order to kind of come up with the basic plan that you have so far.
Right. I've picked the when was the first thing I picked because I kind of had to work my schedule for work. I had to make sure the girls were both out of school. Mm-hmm. And then I wanted to involve my sister, because she lives in Atlanta. So the first day of the trip is just me and the girls and Grace's friend. And then as we go through Atlanta, we spend a night in Atlanta somewhere, pick up my sister and her husband, and then travel on for the next 2 days. Yeah. And so you have to wait, make sure everybody, her and her husband both had to get the time off. He's actually retiring, so, that's good. It doesn't affect that. So, and my husband's not going because, as I've said before, it wouldn't be a fun road trip, and he's okay with it.
Right.
The kids are older. I don't even think Grace is excited about going. Stella is non-committal either way. Just if I got to get in the car, I'll get in the. She's 13.
Right.
So she really could care less about road tripping.
That age.
And I tried to involve Max. It's harder because he's now a full-fledged adult. I think he's not going to road trip, but he's going to fly in for the weekend.
Okay.
So he can still be a part of it.
Okay.
So we'll get an hour-long road trip out of him because it's an hour to the airport and back.
Right.
So, and he remembers our road trip, so he has.
So it sounds a little bit like, you've done some of the legwork that goes ahead of time to get what you came up with. We thought that it might be a good thing to walk through some of those steps with you guys out there because we know that, family vacation season is coming, and we know a lot of you are going to be taking to the road. So with that, we're going to jump into a little bit of trip talk. That was actually a smooth cue.
That was perfect.
Good job, Dustin.
Thanks.
I'm excited about that.
Wow. Progress. All right.
Okay.
Well, okay. So when Tets and I were talking about this, trying to lay out the format, we decided that a very easy way to break out something is often to discuss it in the terms of who, what, when, where, why, and how. And
It's like a party invitation.
yeah, it kind of works. It kind of works. And it
does.
definitely works here. So the first one would be who. When you are planning a road trip, you have to figure out who's going and how do you figure that out. So talk a little bit about the thought process that went on in your mind.
All right.
What are the things you had to consider?
Well, like I said, I invited my husband, and he looked at me and gave me the look like, yeah, I'll think about it. But I knew that meant, no, go ahead. I'll have a good time without you. So then I knew at that point, I knew for sure it was going to be me and the girls. Mm-hmm. And I put out the word to my sister, because we like to go back and visit the family together because there's usually some sort of little reunion involved. So once it involved her, then we had to decide if it was going to involve her husband. And then like a week or so later, he came on board. And so that determined our who was going to go. And then we needed to figure out how we were going to get there on the road.
Save that.
Okay. How's not even on our list, is it?
So when it comes to who, how are you...
Who, how, what?
How are you determining the who? I feel like I'm doing that stand-up comedy routine.
How am I
Who's on
determining the who?
first? Who's on first? What's on second?
It was, well, for us, it was...
What are you considering when who gets to figure out that they don't want to go, and who gets to say that they don't want to go versus who gets made to go whether they want to go or not?
Okay, well, if you're a juvenile under my control, you will be going with me. Right? Great. Stella didn't have an option. She's
Okay.
going. And I gave Grace the option, but I also put in the little caveat, your grandparents are getting old, chickie.
Just threw in a healthy dose of mom guilt.
I mean, I don't want to say you don't want to go visit after the fact and see them in the coffin. I don't want to say that. Well, they're old. I'm sorry. You start thinking about that stuff. So, but I did say that with Max. I did say, dude, I'll buy you a plane ticket. You got to go. But so anyway, so that was and I've done these road trips solo with just my family, but I always have more fun if my sister's along. So I did ask her. And we always have this discussion every year. Are you going back? When you going back? She goes back more than I do because has a part-time job and no children. So she can fly back, So I put that out there for her, even though I already knew that I was going, whether she went or not.
Yeah.
It was a done deal for me.
Okay.
And I'd already picked my dates. Everybody had to work around my dates because I don't want to say I have the most important, but I have the busiest schedule in my world.
At some point, someone has to take the lead and put their foot down, and everyone else has to work around that.
So this is when we're going. And it upset Grace because she was missing a couple concerts that she had planned. Don't care. You're going. I mean, is that wrong, Dustin?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I like concerts as much as the
at
next
some
person.
point,
But
I do
something
too.
has to take priority.
But you can't have. Last year's road trip, I caved and she stayed here for whatever concert was, and then I flew her up and she just road tripped back with us. And I'm not caving this year, and she's trying. She's trying to, you could fly me out, and that ain't gonna happen. And she always brings a friend with her because Biggsville population 350 Yeehaw is small.
Yeehaw Junction.
Yeah, it's like Yeehaw.
She's bringing her own company.
So she brings a friend to interact with and to share. And this is a new friend this year. It's not a new friend, but it's a new one to the trip. And we're looking forward to Krista joining us because she's fun. I think it'll be a good interaction. She interacts well with Stella also.
I love this idea. I mean, I know that when you're determining who's going on the trips, especially when it comes to family vacation, you have the core family, as you were saying, that's just set in stone. No question, you will be there, whether
Right.
you like it or not. But even when my family would...
You will enjoy your family.
You will like it. With my family, we would occasionally add extra people as well. There were a few vacations where we would take my Nana, my great grandmother, and those were always very special trips when we would take her because she was a hoot. That woman was freaking hilarious, and she always added a little bit of extra spice to the whole.
See, that's
journey.
fun.
It
I like
was
that.
fun,
We have
and I have great memories with her because of that.
We took a couple road trips to Florida with my in-laws and my husband, and both of them, I could not wait to get out of the vehicle when we got here, because I found that Kelvin was exactly like his parents, and that none of them care for road trips. And here's, Max and I just singing like crazy.
I think that's something that you have to take into consideration when you're talking about bringing the extras from the outside into the core family unit, because even if your family doesn't like going, bottom line is your family and you're used to functioning within the dynamics of that group. When you add someone from the outside, it you don't necessarily have that common ground of, through whatever we're sticking together. So you need to make sure that it's a combination that works. Like for us, bringing my Nana in, that worked.
Well, I think bringing Krista in, who is Grace's age, she's 20 also, she's known our family and me in particular 5-6 years. And she's been to our house enough that I think she's got an idea. I think she might have wanted to come because she knew it was going to be fun. Not to say that we're fun people, but she knew it was going to be quirky and a little off the
when you get it right,
by the road.
When you get it right, you can really get it right.
Yeah.
Depending on the people that you're in the situation with, it can be a fantastic trip. I took a road trip with some girlfriends when I was in college. We made the trek all the way from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, down to where I lived in Coconut Creek, Florida, so that we could hit the beach, college spring break. And it was, it was great. It was, I think there was 5 of us, again, in a vehicle, and we were all from, the cheerleading squad, and we just had the best time. It was, loud singing the whole way there, and joking and teasing, a million inside jokes happening along the way. We had this horrendous situation where the carburetor fell off the car, and it's a girl of 5 cheerleaders. We had no idea what to do, and so then it became like this, this situation of survival that we lived through, and then still to this day laugh about the carburetor. We didn't even know how to say the word, and we had to somehow solve the problem. It was complete high drama and such a fantastic time. Had it been a group of different people that didn't quite work the way that we did, that could have been catastrophic.
Yeah. We took a mini road trip one time. We decided we could fly up to St. Louis and then drive the last 4 hours to Biggsville one year. And Max was with us that year, and we rented a van. And we got about an hour and a half from Biggsville. It was dark, and the windshield wipers came on and would not go off there was absolutely no reason for them to come on. But we felt like they were scratching the glass, and it was just Max. It's just the girls and Max and I. And Max was I was driving, and he spent the last hour hanging his head out the window, throwing water on the windshield to make it
lubricate the windshield.
I love it. You do these crazy things on road trips.
He was laughing his head off because he's hanging out the window, going down this country road, lubricating the windshield. It's just so stupid. Why didn't we just stop and pull the, I don't know.
But we had a similar situation once where a big rock from a truck that was in front of us flew out of the dump truck and hit our windshield wiper and broke the windshield wiper. And we had to drive a considerable way when we actually needed the windshield wiper to function, but we couldn't use it. You had the opposite. You had the working windshield wiper.
I love road trips, though. I just get so
these
excited.
Are the reasons why you do love road trips. All right, so let's talk about what a road trip is.
A road trip is a trip taken in a motor vehicle with at least one overnight stay.
All right.
That's the definition.
Oh, it has to have an overnight stay.
It has to have that's the definition I found. Official.
Okay.
So, but then you need to determine what your specific road trip is going to look like. Now, you were telling us a little bit earlier about what you had figured out was going to be the particulars about your road trip. You were
right. Like I said, we've done this numerous times, and we always go the same path. And it's not a boring path, but it's a familiar path. Atlanta, Nashville, Paducah, up through Illinois, Springfield, and across to Biggsville.
Good old Paducah.
It's always the way we go. Okay, so last year we mixed it up a little bit. We kind of went that way but we planned stops. So we spent the night in Atlanta. We spent the night in Nashville, which was awesome. No, we didn't. We went to Nashville for the day, and then we spent the night at a Dizzer's house in someone I had never met before. It was so freaky, but
You got adventurous.
it was very adventurous, and it was kind of scary going into it. But I love her to death. Now I'm not gonna. It's Paige. I love you to death. So anyway, but we saw things we didn't see. I had the biggest slice of meringue pie. I think that's what they were billed as, and it was huge. I mean, we were looking for oddities and different things. Coming back, we went the other way through Iowa, Missouri, ended up in Memphis for the night, the first night. And the next morning we hung out in Memphis and did some things. And then we come through Alabama. And then here's where we veered off the path. We didn't make it to Atlanta. My sister powered on because she lives in Atlanta. She's like, I'm going home. And I was tired. I was the only one. We had 2 cars at that point because we decided on this road trip 2 smaller cars were more economical than 1 big van. We did, and we always get to our destination if my sister's involved, and we're fighting over who's going to go where, and she has other people to see too. So we had 2 vehicles last year. So she powered on to Atlanta, and the girls and I stopped beside the road at just a basic hotel and spent the night.
You know what? I love what you said about you have particular places that you stopped at regularly. We actually had one that we would stop when I was a kid traveling with my parents, and we first latched onto it just because of happenstance, and then every year afterwards it became a tradition. The first year we were driving, and I already explained in last week's episode how my dad would try to power through overnight, and we would reach a point in the evening where we would just get slap happy because we were all so ridiculously tired, and we had passed the stage where we were at each other's throats, and then you get past that to the point where everyone's just
ticking
completely
off.
and then it just gets ridiculous. And then of course in the front seat would be my dad and my stepmom going at it with each other all the time. So we passed this one place called Alonia. I don't remember what state it was in. I want to say North Carolina maybe. And my stepmom was just completely at her wit's end with my dad for whatever reason, screaming and yelling at him, and he just kept egging her on by being really ridiculous, which got her even more mad. So then he started, you talk about your backstories, he started making up a song about the city of Alonia, and he would sing it in a country twang, and I was eating bologna in Alonia. And it went on for 15 minutes. Okay. And so it became such a family joke that in the years following it, we would stop in Alonia and, stay overnight along the way.
Some bologna.
We would eat bologna in Alonia.
Slap me up a bologna sandwich. Okay, that's interesting. But you have those little places that,
right. Yeah. And you got to define your what.
It's like south of the border.
You have to define your what as far as your trip goes.
Got to stop there, right?
That's right.
Pedro's waiting.
Yeah, Pedro corny, Michael.
A big thing after you've defined your what, how many nights you're staying en route and how many nights you're staying when you get to your destination and the trip back and blah, blah, blah. The where, you really, well, this is kind of a starting point, the thing that you need to figure out, one of the first things you need to figure out, the where. How do you pick your destination?
You mean for along the route?
When you've got a trip coming up, you're gonna vacation. What is it that ends up being the determining factor as where you're trying to get to?
It's just whatever you want to do.
Right, is whether you're going to go see family, or you're going to go to a weekend vacation, or you're going to go on a longer family vacation to Florida or wherever.
Right. Now, you have to figure out if it's a need or a want. Do you have to go visit family? Is it,
You don't have to, but sometimes it's both. You need and
is
you
it
want.
great-grandma's funeral and you got to get there? Or is it the annual trip to see grandma and grandpa? Or is it you just are picking someplace? Because you got to take the kids and
just picking
a place.
Just to get out with the family.
Right,
We've done that too. This particular trip for me is a need and a want.
Okay.
I need to go and I want to go.
So you need to go because you got to visit the family.
I need to go because I want to because I want to.
You need to go because you want to visit the family. That works. I think that's
see my parents.
That's a lot of the family
because my
vacations.
brothers are up there, and I've got some I can say odd aunts and uncles
Yeah.
because they'll never see this show, but yeah, they're, you know. And everyone's aging, and I feel the urgency to go back and you know,
Right.
reconnect.
Right.
And because I didn't do it for a few years, and I thought, ooh, now's, you know, everybody's getting up there, the kids are getting older, we got to get this in and
Right.
make sure, you know.
I'm feeling the pressure for that a
you
bit
just need
too.
to- yeah,
With
you
my
need to
grandfather
connect with
turning
it.
95,
Yeah.
and you know, my kids haven't seen him in a few years, and
Yeah.
right. So
It is. I
you
mean,
know, it's time.
And it's different. I mean, I know when Max and as relatives and parents age, you know, it's a different, your interaction with them is different. So because of that, on this particular road trip and last year's also, we no longer stay at my parents' house when we get there. We stay in the Hotel Lynn, which is the 4-room hotel in Biggsville, which is I find haunted, but it's interesting, and it's only $50 a night, so why not? You know?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, so in picking your destination, in addition to, you know, whether it's a need or a want, something else that needs to be considered is it within driving distance? How far are you willing to drive? I don't know.
Right.
What are your limits? Dustin?
Well, for me, the last time I did any kind of road trip like that, it was a very long road trip, and I was willing to drive however long it took in the day to get to my destination, because I would then, at the end of the day, be camping somewhere or getting a hotel. I had no limits on how far we would go. In terms of what you guys are talking about, I know for me personally, I have driven the one-day trip from Virginia to Florida, which is 12 hours. By the end of that trip alone, I am talking to myself. I'm crazy. My legs hurt from not moving, all that kind of stuff. I would never go 12 hours either alone or with kids and a family and stuff like that. I would cap it at between 6 and 8 hours a day, honestly. But that requires planning things that are interesting to see along the way. So like when you stopped at Nashville, or when you stopped at Pachuca or whatever
Paducah, yeah.
Paducah, you know, there's things to see along the way. Spread it out, break it up. I wouldn't do long days.
Yeah,
I
when
think
our
that's
kids
smart.
were little and we lived in the Atlanta area, we would never stop anywhere. It was a 19-hour
Oh,
mecca
goodness.
with 2 to 4 drivers.
Wow.
And it ended up, we would leave like 4 o'clock in the morning and arrive midnight or after. And it was long. And then, and I don't know why the reasoning was, other than the fact that we just didn't want to spend the money on a, you know, and then we went through the years where, okay, maybe it's easier just to fly, but it's more expensive once the family gets
Exactly.
big. It's hard to because when you fly, you still have to get a vehicle when you get there. So then we started adding on the extra days. And when I moved to Florida, there was no way I was going to drive straight through. It just wasn't going to happen. So it was a matter of, you know, we're going to drive it and we're going to see what we can along the way and take. So this particular trip that we're taking this summer is going to be, I haven't decided yet. I don't know if we're going to go. I'm still trying to figure it out. Obviously, certain states we have to go through because Florida's down here by itself and there's no other way. You got to go through Georgia, right? And I got to pick up my sister. So I think I want to veer east maybe and maybe head over towards Ohio, maybe add an extra day in, and then shoot across back over to Illinois or go the other way. I don't know. The other way would be one time we took a road trip coming back and we hit Mississippi and we did some deep south, which I absolutely love. It was a little too much history for the kids. My sister and I were like shoving history down their throats and look at this, you know, and they were just too young to appreciate it at that point.
Right.
And they probably wouldn't appreciate it now.
Well, that's another thing to consider when you're talking about the destination where you want to end up, or considering the things that you want to see along the way. Now, you had mentioned that you kind of wanted to switch it up a little bit, do a few new things and stop at a
Right.
few new places.
Yeah.
So
Grace is all about the big ball of string, the biggest rocking chair, the biggest piece of pie, the biggest, you know.
The world's largest frying pan.
Right. She's all about seeing that Route 66 kind of stuff.
Roadside attraction.
Right. She's all about, oh my gosh, this is the only place you can see this. You know,
Yeah.
let's get out and take stupid pictures. And I kind of like that, and Stella enjoys that too. I'm more about the historical and what's going on in the area and what the people in the area. I like to see the people and meet the people, and you know,
You'd be a great politician.
I want to be shaking hands, kissing babies right and left.
Yeah.
But no, that's what I like about it. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where we're at right now.
All right.
We know, I don't know if we're going to talk about this later, or I can bring it in now. We know we're going to rent a vehicle because I don't want to put the miles on my car. So we are renting. I've already got the van rented. I got a good price, so which is a totally lower price than it was last year at this time for a van. That's why we went with 2 cars last year. So we got a van big enough to seat, I think, 7 or 8. So
And rental vans are not cheap. I mean, they're more expensive than rental cars.
they are. I
Sure.
think this one's going to be right under 700
Wow.
for the 10 days or whatever.
But in some ways, it might be the better option, especially if you have a vehicle that you're not sure can make the trip.
Well, or that I don't want to whether I don't want to put the miles on my car, you know. And I priced out airfare, and it's still, there's no way between airfare and renting a car on the other end also. This was a no-brainer for us. Plus, I like road trips. So.
Yeah. Now, you had touched on something earlier, the when. How is it that you get all of these people, especially because they're older in your situation, older kids? We know that at a certain age, kids end up getting their own schedules that have to be worked around. How do you get everyone's schedules to line up to accommodate this?
Plan early. Make sure, you can't wait till the last minute on this and just say, we're going on a road trip,
Yeah.
You got to make sure that you do it early enough where everybody has time to ask off work, make sure they're not in school, they don't have any other plans. And also, for this particular road trip, we got to make sure the people on the other end of our trip that we're going to see are actually going to be there.
Right. That's true, and I hadn't thought about it. It's not
Yeah.
just the people taking the trip, it's the people that are meeting you at
Because I've
your
got
destination.
nieces and nephews that I want to see. So I need to make sure that because they're not all living in Biggsville. Nobody lives in Biggsville but my parents.
And 350
And 300
people.
really, and other people. But all that, well, I have an aunt that lives there too. But everybody else is spread out. Iowa, other parts of Illinois, Oklahoma. I want to make sure. Last year, California cousins flew back. We gave enough advance notice
So that other people
that
can
we had
clear
other
their
people.
schedules.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the key, I think, is planning early.
Okay.
If you want to involve more people.
Okay. All right. And then the why. Why are you taking the trip? I think one important question that needs to be asked is this trip more about the journey or is it more about the destination? Because different traveling groups see it differently.
Right. That's why my husband's not going.
Yeah.
If Kelvin were with us, it would be the destination.
You just get there.
Get
The
your
goal
body
is to
in the
get
car
there.
and get there. I don't want to see that ball of string. I do not want to experience that big piece of pie. I just want to get there. For me, it's both.
Yeah, and I
It's,
think
it's always both.
the best road trips I've ever had have been a blend of both.
Yeah.
Because obviously you do want to get to a certain location. You do have a destination or maybe even a vacation in mind.
Right.
But when you can plan out your road trip to hit those little gems along the
Yeah.
way, that makes it so much better.
There's nothing
it really
better.
does.
Because then it's part of the experience. It's not
Yeah.
just going to the experience. It's part of it. And it's just the memories we've been talking about, you know? All of it just makes it that much sweeter.
Right. I agree. Okay. So, and then you had also mentioned something when we had talked about allowing each person, because it's about the journey for you, not just the destination, but allowing each person in your party to pick something to stop and see along the way.
I've
How's
tasked
that working
everybody.
out?
The girls, I've told them both to do some research. They know our destination. They both looked at the maps. And at some point within the next week or 2 weeks, we'll sit down and we'll have a meeting and we'll go over and try to figure it all in. Whether it's going up or coming back, we'll try to
Hit
find
something for everyone
And my
along the
sister
way.
will have a massive portfolio of what she expects us all to do. And we'll incorporate all that in there too, since we are in one vehicle this year.
Yeah.
So, and her husband is a very quiet traveler. Mm-hmm. He's good for the long haul driving. He doesn't necessarily sing along unless it's Bee Gees or Three Dog Night. But
You could be like my dad and start singing about catching pneumonia
there you
in
go.
Alonia.
but he doesn't complain. He enjoys
Oh, that was verse 2, was catching pneumonia in Alonia.
But he's
What about smelling begonias
in
Alonia?
We are going to put an addendum on the song, and that will now be
the
added.
bologna smells like begonias. Okay, so no, we're all going to have an input of what, and I'm sure Grace will come up with some interesting things, and I'll have my input too on what, and and last year I put out a little blurb on Facebook, because there's people all over the country.
Exactly.
Are there any listeners in Biggsville?
No.
There might be some along the way, though, that can kind of
Well, just,
point out.
what's in your area. And people gave me ideas. Oh, if you go to Memphis, do this. And we did. We ate at that oldest, greasiest hamburger in Memphis. It was the best hamburger in the world. I'd seen it on TV.
Yeah.
And I wanted it. The grease hasn't been changed in 300 years or something.
Oh, lovely.
It was awesome. It was the best hamburger. And we had to have it, and we did. And, it was because of someone told me about it.
Yeah,
so I'm
right.
open for anybody.
That's a really good point. It's changed since you and I were road tripping as kids. You have so many more people at your fingertips to kind of help out in your planning, and people are often more than happy to kind of give you pointers along the way. All right, so the last thing to cover would be the how, determining your framework from getting from point A to point B. You already talked about picking a vehicle that accommodates the goals. Once you have all the other things in place, you can figure out what type of vehicle it is that's going to suit your needs best. But then you had also mentioned maintaining a budget, but still being able to have a few indulgences.
Right. I don't want to go crazy and fill the car up with tchotchkes from our road trip, because you don't really need all of that. You have to have a set, I do anyway, because I'm not independently wealthy. I have to have, this is the amount the vehicle costs, this is the amount I think gas was going to cost, food along the trip. We do pack meals, but also we're going to be purchasing meals, The hotels along the way are where we're staying. Once we get that set up, we'll have that. We'll know what that's going to cost. And then I kind of got a number in my head of what we're going to be spending just for, Like, for instance, okay, the hotel in Biggsville, it's a personal check or cash. There's no credit cards involved.
Wow.
So you have to have that cash on hand before you leave, or you can write, my ex-classmate who owns a check. It's good, really it is, but don't do it till next week. So, you have to know how much, but you don't want to take a wad of cash with you. Of course, there's banks and ATMs all over the place, but I want to make sure everybody has a good time, and that if you want the T-shirt, we come back last year, we stopped at Antique Archaeology in Nashville. Grace got a T-shirt. Stella got some little tchotchke. It's fun to bring home souvenirs, but you don't want to break the bank, and
Right.
you can have a good time without doing that.
Right.
I want to throw it out there, and I mentioned it earlier on in this episode and last week's episode, that if you are on a budget and you plan this out appropriately, and you're into this kind of thing. Yes, that along the road trip, if you're making a stop or two, instead of staying at hotels, maybe going to a campground. Bring a tent along with you and make camp for the night. It's going to be probably significantly cheaper than staying in a hotel room. And it's a really good bonding experience between those and between you and those of you that are traveling with you.
I have a different view of that, but
Are you
yes.
serious? I think it's fun and really.
I think
I
that
don't know.
goes back along with who you're traveling
Right.
with. I mean, this is a whole other episode, this idea of
What are you
camping.
That's
The camping trip.
Last time I
we should have an
camped,
episode
I was
about
a Girl
camp
Scout, and
trips.
it wasn't good. But no, people do that all the time.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah, my family used to do that, which is, again,
Grace's dream
more
was
fun
like always get a
stories.
big Winnebago and do the big road trip. I'm like, I'm not driving a big, because I have aunts and uncles that they're campers. My grandma and Grandpa Smith were big camping people,
Yeah.
camping and fishing people.
Always want to
Yeah.
drive a cool Winnebago.
Yeah.
That's a dream.
That
of
I
mine.
could possibly do that.
I could maybe do that, but
we
not
had the
pitch a
pop up.
tent.
We had the pop up camper that we pulled behind
No, we weren't camping.
the conversion van for a while.
Holiday
it
Inn
was
or nothing.
interesting.
It was my father's pearl. Holiday Inn. So, where were we? I lost my train
Well,
of thought.
that was kind of it.
Yeah.
You've got your preliminary planning in place.
Got it started, yeah.
That was a tongue twister. Say that 5 times. Preliminary planning in place for your road trip. And hopefully that was helpful for you guys, throwing out a few things that you're going to maybe want to consider as you're getting geared up for yours.
We'll touch base a little bit later on as it gets closer to trip time.
Yeah.
And, give you some details of maybe some obstacles we're coming up against or ideas that people have thrown at me, things I'd like to see or things that they'd want me to see. Because I think that would be fun.
I agree.
So I guess that's going to do it for this week. Next week, we'll
do something
have
exciting.
some more exciting adventures.
That's right.
You want to take us out, JL?
Yeah. Just everybody remember, don't be sleeping alone in Alonia. Bye-bye. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. This week we're discussing preliminary packing for your road trip. Live from the Bob Varley studio in
Nope.
Orlando. What happened?
Preliminary planning.
What did I say?
Packing.
Oh, yep, sorry.